throwing. Welcome into NFL Draft Daily. I am Field Yates, joined by the busiest man at the company today, Mel Kiper Jr., and one of the busiest men at the company most days, Louis Riddick. And we have a big day upon us as we have Mel's final mock draft before the Combine begins. And Mel, what do you think about Fernando Mendoza?
How lucky, what good fortune for the Raiders to have Fernando Mendoza available at that number one spot, to have a year where that quarterback is worthy of being the number one pick. What did the late, great Al Davis always say? Just win, baby. What did Fernando Mendoza do more than any other quarterback? He won everything. And he improved in the areas he needed to, going from Cal to Indiana. And certainly a guy who cracked the code, as he always said, he thrived, tried to do week after week. And that was what he was motivated to do. Arm strength is certainly more than good enough. The accuracy to all levels, the instincts and the awareness he has as a quarterback is second to none. I think this is going to be a heck of a pick, and this is going to, I think, catapult the Raiders right into contention once they build that talent up around them.
In graphic form, here are the three other Heisman Trophy winners eventually drafted by the Raiders. Mendoza will be the fourth. Here is what current Raiders GM John Spytek had to say about Mendoza in a conversation with our Kimberly Martin. We appreciate and understand why John Spytek is non-committal for right now. 58 more days until the Raiders actually take Fernando Mendoza. Let's get us to pick number 2, Mel. The Jets on the clock. Some would say the draft begins here. Who do you have the Jets taking at number 2?
Yeah, a great player. Safety Caleb Downs from Ohio State, formerly of Alabama, where he came right in as a true freshman, the Nick Saban, and really became a defensive coordinator on the field, an extension of that defensive coordinator. A guy who's instinctive. Talk about what Kyle Hamilton's done with the Baltimore Ravens. A guy like Caleb Downs. Louis Riddick talked about culture in Philadelphia. How about culture with the Jets? Change that culture. Raise that bar in terms of how they prepare. And winning is not in, but winning is not going to be tolerated. And that's the way Caleb Downs is approaching it. They had no interceptions this past year, the Jets. So for me, Caleb Downs makes a lot of sense the way the safeties are being used. His instincts, his versatility. This is the kind of baller he is. He's all about football. He's all about, like I say, raising the bar of every player on that team, not just on the defensive side. I think it'd be a heck of a pick for the Jets at number 2.
Let's take a look at this Jets offseason outlook, and they have nearly $80 million in cap space. That's good news. The problem is they have a lot of needs to address. The Jets did extend center Josh Myers back in December, but a huge notable free agent is, of course, running back Breece Hall. He is due for a tag, whether it's the franchise tag or the transition tag. So, Louis, let's talk about this idea that Mel has pitched at pick number 2, taking Caleb Downs. We all agree he's an incredible player, but is pick 2 too high for a safety?
Yeah, look, you know what? I played with a player named Eric Turner back with the Cleveland Browns, who was picked number 2 overall back in 1991. So I understand how guys at this position can have a massive effect on not only just the defenses, but as Mel is talking about, when they have the right. Oh, look at that picture!
Look at
Holy cow! Look at those shoulder pads, Mel. You love it. I would want someone closer to the football who can really impact the football game, whether it be a guy who can affect the quarterback, on the defensive side, a guy who can close out a football game, a guy who can make the kind of impact plays that you need to turn around football games at a moment's notice. That's not to say that safeties can't do it, but when you watch Caleb play, Caleb is a steady, very dependable, rock-solid star guy who can play the slot and sub, play free safety or strong safety in base. He doesn't miss many tackles. He's a guy who doesn't make any mistakes. He's going to always do the right thing. But I sit there and I think, when I think of a guy like Arvell Reese, who's been also mocked at this position by Field, I'm sitting there and going, that's the difference maker that I'm talking about. If he's the same kind of culture builder as a guy like Caleb Downs is, or a guy like David Bailey, those are the guys who I want. Reuben Bain Jr., those are the guys who I want at that position. Think of what Will Anderson Jr. did for the Houston Texans, right? Those are the kind of dudes. Perfect football and personal character, but guys who can affect the outcome of games because they're so close to the ball and they can terrorize quarterbacks. That's why I lean towards those positions. But look, I get it. I get why we
I'm not even arguing
Downs.
against the Caleb Downs pick this high. It's just it would just be crazy to see. Like,
Lewis, no question about
it's hard
that.
to even think of guys going that high, like Sean Taylor, Eric Berry,
but it could be. It's a potential.
Number 2?
We haven't seen that yet on a regular basis. He wasn't afforded that opportunity. David Bailey at Stanford looked like he was maybe a first rounder. Now he's way up there in the stratosphere because of what he did in that one great year at Texas Tech. So that's a tough call. I just felt like for this team that didn't have an interception at all in a 17-game schedule and a pass-happy league, Caleb Downs would give them something that you really, put it this way, if he doesn't go there, How about the Giants at 5? Would Harbaugh not look at him at 5 to the New York Giants? So for me, I don't think it's too high. You mentioned Eric Turner. How about at 5, Eric Berry? You think about Kenny Easley. You think about Sean Taylor. There's been a lot of good safeties went in that top 5 of the draft and turned out exceptionally well at the pro level.
It does feel like one of the dynamics in play here is the uniqueness of this draft. This is not a draft that has a bunch of obvious blue chip players at premium positions, so perhaps Caleb Downs will hear his name called by the Jets at number 2. I absolutely love that photo, by the way. Lewis and Eric Turner, that right there is good stuff. Let's keep things rolling here with this mock draft. And the Cardinals are up next with that 3rd overall pick. Mel, who are they taking?
Reference them at David Bailey. You think about a guy who off the edge this year at 11 of 14 games had a sack. His athletic ability is incredible. He was a good player at Stanford, but what he's done over the last 2 years, and I love this, 8 forced fumbles. He really impacts a game, and he gets that ball back to his offense. So David Bailey, the Arvell Reese is going to be in play as well. Arvell Reese going next to the Tennessee Titans. Robert Saleh comes in. Arvell Reese, whether it's off ball or attacking off the edge, or however they utilize him, but they developing him as a pass rusher off the edge, that will be what Micah Parsons did coming from Penn State, obviously developing into a guy off the edge that was unblockable at times. So you get the defensive players, Downs, you get Bailey, then you get Reese. Now we get back to the offensive side of the ball. And that's where, again, when you think about Spencer Fano for the New York Giants with Caleb Downs gone at 2, Jim Harbaugh went. Joe Altman, a lot of people thought they're going to take a receiver. What does John Harbaugh do here? He goes into trenches again. Fano, right tackle, free agency could impact that position. Fano can play guard as well, helping out Jackson Dart. That's kind of the theme here with Fano going there. And obviously, CC Mauigoa from Miami would be in the mix as well. Then to the Cleveland Browns. Who's available? Carnell Tate's available. Somebody who does something that the Browns had issues with, which was catching the football for Shedeur Sanders, who went 3 and 4
the Browns
last
people
year,
would
played
like
bad
this
weather
pick.
without an offensive line and weapons around him because of injury. This is a team that needs a guy who can run routes. He will block, unselfish, great character. Again, a culture builder. That's what Carnell Tate would be. And catch the football when it's thrown your way. He will do that every time.
Okay, so the Browns may have solved one of their questions with the wide receiver and Carnell Tate, but the biggest remaining question for Cleveland this offseason is, of course, who is going to be their starting quarterback in 2026? GM Andrew Berry spoke at the Combine today about the possibility of drafting yet another quarterback. Okay, so we are definitely in the quarterback market, it would sound like, if you are the Cleveland Browns. Lewis, your thoughts on the Browns and the possibility of adding yet another quarterback to this relatively young quarterback room?
Yeah, I mean, this has been the conversation ever since last year's draft concluded. And look, I get why we're going there. I don't necessarily believe, though, that you can build your team back to front, so to speak. And that doesn't mean that quarterback isn't a need for the Browns, although I am a believer in Shedeur Sanders, and I think we all know that. But the fact of the matter is this, okay, if we're looking at Carnell Tate being mocked there, the number 6 overall, and I agree with Mel in terms of what Carnell Tate brings to the table, both on the field and off the field. But if we do not get this offensive line squared away in Cleveland, considering the number of free agents that they have and the kind of turnover they're going to experience on this offensive line, I don't care what quarterback you put back there.
Yeah, I was about to just say the entire O-line is a free agent for them.
You're not going to get the ball to them. Your offense is going to disintegrate from the inside out, and you won't be able to do a thing. You definitely won't be able to run the football.
It was already bad. It's not like this was a good line last year.
You don't know which one of these guys are going to come back, and you don't know which one of these guys that the Browns want back. So you better get yourself, again, some culture builders in the trenches. A guy like CC Mauigoa in Mel's mock would be sitting there, so why wouldn't you select him and plug him in at right tackle and say, hey, look, here we have a building block, here we have a pillar. We can go ahead and right now, and then we're going to see how the rest of this draft plays out. Maybe quarterback doesn't fall into our lap this year. Maybe that's a 2027 situation. Maybe we go ahead and ride with Shedeur. We get a wide receiver later on in this draft where there's going to be value at that position still. But you've got to protect it up front. I understand how fantastic Carnell Tate is. I think all three of us love the guy. But the offensive line right now doesn't even exist. You don't even have guys under contract. You have to solidify that spot. And CC would go ahead and kind of like anchor that thing down and build it from the ground up.
Yeah, and I think you have your quarterback in Shedeur Sanders. I watched every snap, and I was impressed. 3-4 record. Are you kidding me? Behind that line you're talking about, Lewis, wide receivers dropping the balls, injuries all over the place, playing in horrible weather, snow, sleet, rain, wind, didn't matter. And he gutted it out. And this is going to be now 7 offensive coordinators over the last 6 years for Shedeur Sanders. What did Andrew Berry say? Well, he's got to learn a new offense. Are you kidding me? Really? Your guy, Tyler Shuck in New Orleans, handpicked by Kellen Moore. What's he doing? He's in the same offense. He's in a dome. Now we got another coach, another system, not learn a new offense. That's the last thing you need for a young quarterback. I'm with you. They got a ton of holes, but I just think Carnell Tate is a great starting point for a team. And as I said, Shedeur put it on them. Sometimes they didn't catch the ball. And when you don't catch the ball in this league and you have drops, they are drive killers. So I agree. I'd have 3 to 4 offensive linemen drafted throughout this process, but that first pick, I would go with the best player on the board at a position of need, which will be Carnell Tate.
And I tell you what, the Browns somehow, some way, every single offseason.
I think GM Adam Peters going to see a lot of Fred Warner in a guy like Sonny Styles. Sonny Styles is fast. He's athletic. He's certainly all over the field. Former safety. So I think he fits in well with what the NFL is looking for in that off-ball linebacker. And he had a heck of a year. He actually had 13 more tackles than Arvell Reese. He led the Buckeyes in tackles this year. Sonny Styles did. So I think that's a pick. The guy who's moving up. We had him at 12 in Mach 1.0 to Dallas. Now I have him 7 to Washington. He is on the rise, and he should test off the charts with the physical prowess he brings to that position. Here's one of my favorite players in the draft, Mekhi Lemon. He's got the return ability. If you watch him after the catch, he's as good as it gets. He's going to help out Tyler Shock. Louis Riddick nailed that evaluation of Tyler Shock. Now you help him out with a baller in Mekhi Lemon. Snatches the ball, attacks the ball with those strong hands, loves to play the game. Here's after the reception. Like I said, the return skills add to his value for Mekhi Lemon. Going to New Orleans Saints, who need more weapons for Tyler Shock to keep forward as one of the better young quarterbacks in the NFL. Jeremiah Love to Kansas City at 9. The second best player in the draft. They need a running back. He's also a guy you can put out slot wide. He's got great hands, great receiving threat, explosive, touchdown maker. He can go 25 to 50 yards in a blink, 70 yards in a blink. I don't think you have to mark it down in pencil, write it in pen. I'm just not sure if after all said and done, Jeremiah Love will still be on the board at pick number 9.
Yeah, check the numbers here, Mel. On the Chiefs' offense last year, it was their worst offensive production in over a decade. One major concern is, of course, that running game. How about this? In games in which Patrick Mahomes was the Chiefs starter, the leading rusher for those games was also Patrick Mahomes. Chiefs GM Brett Veach spoke about the running game struggles earlier today at the Indianapolis Combine. Louis, the Chiefs want to get back into the playoff mix right away. What do you think about Jeremiah Love going number 9 to KC in this mock?
I mean, what do you think Brett is telling you right there? You think he's like sitting there going, please, New Orleans, just don't take him?
Yeah.
Please, just leave him there for us? I mean, that's exactly what he's telling you. He's telling you he needs a franchise-changing, game-altering, explosive play-making demon. And that's what Jeremiah Love is. As Mel just said, he's in the mold of Jahmyr Gibbs. He's in the mold of Bijan Robinson. He's in the mold of Saquon Barkley, the guy who can take it 94, 95 in a blink. A guy who you can throw on the screen like you're seeing here against Arkansas, and he's going to take it the distance. He's going to make some people miss an open field, and he's going to be gone. You can flex him out like Jahmyr Gibbs is flexed out in Detroit, and he can run the route tree from the slot, and you can have him be a matchup nightmare. That's what you need. You need that, especially for Patrick coming off the knee injury. Especially, it's going to help the offensive lineman. He talked about the interior 3 of the Kansas City offensive line. Every offensive lineman will tell you, you know, the quickest way to settle me down and to help me out in pass protection is when I can go ahead and hit this 3 technique in the mouth a few times and make him feel as though we're going to run the football. Then guess what he does? Guess what he does on those either-or downs? He slows down because he knows we may run the ball on you. So I'm not just going to tee off on you and rush the passer. Guess who that's going to help? Your quarterback coming off of an ACL injury. This pick is almost too easy to make. It may be the fastest card turn-in in the history of the draft if he's still sitting there at number 9.
Yeah, Lou, you're disappointed you're picking 9, right? But then you see a Jeremiah Love there and you say, okay, we've got a bad year. It's one of those years that's an outlier. We want to be back at 32, and this guy can help us do that. One thing we have to note with this kid, reliability, dependability. 0 fumbles at Notre Dame. He does not cough it up. He does not turn it over. And he is, like I say, a touchdown waiting to happen both as a runner and as a receiver. I just wonder if they'll even move up a little bit to get him, knowing that New Orleans could take him one pick ahead. It's going to be really interesting to see if teams are going to wait it out on Jeremiah Love or be aggressive and go getting him if he does slide past that 3 spot, then into that 6, 7 spot. He's get down there where New Orleans is, and if the team wants to move down, they can move up and get him right ahead of the Saints. It'll be interesting to follow that as we move through the early portion of round 1.
Let's play this out a little bit then, Lewis. If the Saints or somebody else ahead of the Chiefs does take Jeremiah Love prior to pick 9, what will be other areas they need to address with their first pick?
Well, with the Chiefs, I think there's no question. I think defensive line help and wide receiver, those are the other 2 spots that they need to get. They need another playmaker on the perimeter. There's no doubt about that, because we know that they're going to throw the football regardless of how good the running game is going. Andy's going to want to put the ball in the air because he has one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game. I think the position that you have to keep an eye on, though, too, is on the defensive line, Chris Jones needs help. He needs one of those hybrid inside-outside type of guys, like a Keldrick Falk, like a Ruben Bain, like an Akeem Mesidor. One of those types of guys who can play defensive tackle in sub, who can play base 4-3 defensive end in spag scheme on first and second down. So I think wide receiver, defensive line, no question, running back, those are the 3 spots. Those are some of the names that are going to come up. The question is whether or not, okay, do you want to pick one of those guys at 9? Is Bain worthy of going number 9 overall? I'd take him there. I'd take him there if he was still on the board. The guy is just an absolute dynamo. So, yeah, we'll see. This will be these first 10 picks are going to be fun, man. They're going to be fun because there's going to be some movement, and Mel hit the nail on the head. Do the Chiefs feel like we can't sit and wait? We got to go. We got to go get our guy. That's going to be fun to talk about.
Yeah, and I think you're going to have a lot of activity, too, when you talk about a wide receivers that may slide. If one of these guys drops a bit, will they be aggressive there as well? But for the Kansas City Chiefs, yes, they have a lot of needs. But as I say, Jeremiah Love, he's number 2 on my board, so you're not stretching it. And I'm one that says don't take a running back. But when you have a running back who is also a great receiving threat, that's why it almost makes it cements it, like Christian McCaffrey and the backs that you mentioned, Lou, and Field knows all about. So he's more than just a running back. This is because a multi-dimensional football player, and he's a touchdown waiting to happen.
40 touchdowns over the past 2 years from scrimmage for Jeremiah Love. Some eye-popping numbers for the Notre Dame running back. Let's get back on track with our picks, and let's run through 10 through 15 as we have a pair of Hurricanes going back-to-back at 10 and 11 with Ruben Bain Jr. to the Bengals and CeCe Maui-Noa to the Dolphins. Then Mal has the Ravens going wide receiver at 14th overall. That would be Jordan Tyson, wide receiver from Arizona State. Mel, let's focus in a little bit on your hometown Ravens here. Why is Jordan Tyson a good fit for that new offensive coordinator, Declan Doyle?
Well, this is some wide receiver 1. If it weren't for the durability concerns, 3 different injuries, this kid is a big-time talent. When he was with Sam Levitt in 2024, and Sam was healthy the whole year, he lit it up. Then he got hurt near the end of the season. This year, he put up good numbers. And, of course, the hamstring as well. So 3 different injuries. It wasn't for that. Moving through this process, he was healthy. He would go higher than this. So it'll be interesting to see if the Ravens just sit at 14 and wait for Jordan Tyson, a guy that should be in the top 5, 6, 7, but the durability pushes them down. Will they sit and wait for him to maybe fall in their lap at pick 14? And I know Lamar Jackson and also Zay Flowers, who needs a little help. And this is tight end centric. They need another receiver to help out Zay. Jordan Tyson would do that in a big way.
If it isn't in the first pick for the Ravens, there are plenty of options in this wide receiver class. It's a very deep position group, and their new head coach, Jesse Minter, spoke today about the combine wide receiver class. We've got a defensive head coach talking about wide receivers, Lewis. I never thought I'd see the day. But what is the play here for the Ravens at pick number 14 with their first pick for Jesse Minter?
Yeah, this will be interesting, Mike, right? I mean, this is really going to be determined about, concerning Jordan Tyson's availability and his health. And what's the grade going to look like coming out of the combine as far as projecting his be about Jesse Minter, as you mentioned here, Field, being a defensive coach. And Baltimore, quite honestly, needing to reestablish their identity on the defensive line in particular, at edge rusher specifically, going forward, because they just don't have it. They don't have the same kind of defensive personnel that they're accustomed to and that they're going to need, especially playing in the AFC North against some of the quarterbacks that they play against and in the AFC overall. They've got to get a guy. They've got to get a combination inside-outside player, just like I talked about with the Chiefs. And there's going to be some there for them to pick from. This will be another interesting discussion when they're on the clock and in their draft meetings going forward about who presents the best value for us and who helps us reestablish the Baltimore Raven culture. Do we help out Lamar with a dynamite guy and Jordan Tyson who can play? Exactly. So it's just going to be a matter of which position they qualify for, or rather that they prioritize first.
Exactly. And Young is a rising player, had a heck of a year at Missouri, Lou. And Jesse Minter's going to like what he sees when he looks his eye on Young. Go back to the Senior Bowl, go back to the Missouri tape, and you see a guy who hustles and plays against, seals the edge. He gets after the quarterback. This is a kid closes in a hurry. He's going to be an attractive option. I think he could be the first true defensive end off the board, which may be a surprise, but I think he's rising fast, and he's going to be in that mix for the Ravens and other teams. And we'll be interested to see where I have him coming off the board in this mock 2.0.
I got to ask you a quick question here, Mel. How long was your bullpen session? You got some curveballs you're throwing today. How long was your bullpen session before this mock was actually dropped?
A while. A while.
I could tell. The Orioles might be making a call to you at some point over the next couple of months. But we are not done here in NFL Draft Daily. He is a national treasure. That much is for sure. We're going defense on picks 16 through 20. I wish more time would be spent on Mel has a run 15 of 5 through 32 straight defenders. That includes the Jets taking Clemson defensive tackle Peter Woods, and the Cowboys taking Akeem Mesidor from Miami at 20 after both teams were mocked to take defensive players earlier in the round. So, Mel, I start here. Why Peter Woods for the Jets?
Defensive tackle, a versatile kid. You talk about a freakish talent. We thought it'd be a top 5 pick, Field and Lewis, back in August. He didn't have the production. He didn't jump out at you on tape like we thought he would. He had 8.5 tackles for loss in 2024. Didn't build on that. 3.5 tackles for loss and only 2 sacks. Wasn't as disruptive as he needed to be. But teams are going to look at that talent. They're going to say, boy, we can coach him up. We can utilize that versatility like Peter Woods has. He's going to test off the charts. The Jets need somebody like that. Obviously, with Quinton Williams moving on to Dallas. So this is a neat area. And Peter Woods at 16, we thought it'd be a top 5 pick. On talent, he is. Production just didn't match the ability he has this season with the Clemson Tigers.
Yeah, just 5 sacks over the past 2 years for Peter Woods. Let's go back to the Cowboys here, Mel. How come Akeem Mesidor at number 20?
Well, you got Mansour Delane to be that cornerback that you need, coming out off a great year at LSU. Now you got Akeem Mesidor, who really this year at Miami, you can move him inside. He's 280 pounds. Off the edge, he was as disruptive, or even more disruptive in some games than Reuben Maine Jr. was. This is a guy hustles. He's going to be 25 years of age. He is now. He's a Canadian kid. He's ready to go in the NFL. Mature, battle-tested experience, and like Peter Woods, very versatile. Like I said, you can kick him inside. You give that center guard an awful lot of trouble.
So Mesidor's the replacement for Micah, and
you may have heard because they sometimes get some attention.
Delane is the replacement for
4 defensive coordinators in
Trayvon
4
Diggs.
years. Christian Parker is now the new defensive coordinator, leading the staff in Dallas. Lewis, what are your thoughts on the best move for the Cowboys with their first 2 picks, 12 and 20?
Yeah, I like them both. Look, I like how Mel prioritized the positions here. They need playmakers in the back end. And look, Mansour Delane is one of those guys who's like a long, rangy corner who plays with good vision, has good ball skills, probably more efficient in zone than man, and likes to play with good eyes on the quarterback, reads route combinations. Look, I really do like it. I like the prioritization of corner. Look, Akeem Mesidor, that guy is a culture setter. This is the kind of football character that you're looking for. A guy who's going to not only work his tail off and be the first guy in and last guy out, he's going to bring people with him. You talk to the people down there in Miami, you talk to Corey Heatherman, their defensive coordinator, and they will tell you when it was really just the players really policing themselves this past summer and kind of taking the new scheme that they put in Miami in the summer and teaching it to one another. It was guys like Akeem Mesidor who were leading the charge, the guys who took control of things. That's exactly what Dallas needs. They need dudes like this who there's no question about how hard they're going to play, about how hard they're going to prepare, and quite honestly, how they're going to produce when they get on the football field. That's why when we talk about guys like Peter Woods and even TJ Parker down there at Clemson, I struggled with them too. I got to see them in person a couple of times. Yeah. They challenged those guys repeatedly down there this year, and they just weren't able to step up and produce. Akeem Mesidor did. Reuben Maine Jr. did. That's why these guys are guys who I would sleep well at night picking.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting, guys. What happens with Messidor and Bain? Who goes first? Because there's a lot of debate in the NFL. Who's going to be the better player in the NFL? That's not a slam dunk. The Reuben Bain Jr. goes ahead of Akeem Messidor. And how I mentioned Zion Young coming out of Missouri. He's going to be right in that mix to be one of the first defensive end drafted, if not the first defensive end taken. And when you're at 12 and you're at 20, the one guy I think you would hope that's there is Sonny Styles. If I'm Dallas, that's who I really want because he is a centerpiece of a defense. And he keeps getting better and better. That former safety grew so much in year 2 at Ohio State at that off-ball position. So if I'm Dallas at 12, I know Washington's looking at him at 7. Is there some action there? But that's the guy I would hope for if he's not there. I watched Mansour Delane at Archbishop Spalding. He was a great player in high school. He was a good player at Virginia Tech, gave up some big plays, allowed some, made some. At LSU this year, he was off the charts, outstanding week after week.
As long as you play defense, I'm good with the pick for the Cowboys at number 12 and number 20. One more note here on Messidor, worth repeating. He turns 25 just prior to the draft. So an older prospect, certainly some teams will put that into the calculation. Let's move things forward here as we are now, I believe, 58 days away from the NFL draft. Who's counting other than me? Steelers general manager Omar Khan today at the Combine spoke about the future of Aaron Rodgers in the Steel City.
The door's open to have Aaron back. You know, I've had conversations with him. I spoke to him last week. You know, Mike McCarthy spoke to him, and you know, he knows how we feel about him. And you know, it's right now we're proceeding. You know, he's a free agent and he's not on the roster. So, but he knows how we feel about him.
When it comes to this class and just analyzing the quarterback position in general, what are a few traits to you that are important and to the Steelers in general at the quarterback position?
Yeah. So there's several traits, but I'll say we have to find the right quarterback that's going to be an AFC North quarterback. You know, playing in the AFC North, there's nothing like it. You know, the cold weather, the rivalries, the division, the physicality of the division. So it's got to be a AFC North quarterback.
All right, Mel, an AFC North quarterback. Could that be Ty Simpson at number 21 from Alabama?
Well, if you want a Big Ben, you want Ben Roethlisberger. He's not that kind of guy from the physical ability standpoint. He's 6'2". He's going to be around 215 pounds in that area, but a guy who can make the throws at any point on the field. He struggled at times in the second half of this season. First half, he was lights out. Offensive line was inconsistent. They didn't have a running game, and they had some drop balls. So for Ty Simpson, yes, is he going to be a guy who can hold up
Sounds
in the
just
cold
like
weather?
the Steelers' current offense.
Did a good job this year, right? We talked about arm strength. He showed it. He showed he could move. That's how I checked in Cleveland. Brian Sipe and Bernie Kosar did well. Tom Brady up in New England without a great arm. Jim McMahon in Chicago back in 1985 led up to a Super Bowl, not a howitzer for an arm. So again, we've talked about, Joe Burrow coming out of LSU, going to the Bengals in the AFC North. He doesn't have an elite arm strength. So to me, yes, I think you'd love to have a Big Ben being your quarterback in the AFC North. But hey, you don't find those guys that often. So for me, yes, I think Ty Simpson would make sense here. He's a better quarterback coming out grade-wise than what Kenny Pickett was.
Lewis, I want to ask you about Ty Simpson in a moment and why he could be a good match for the Steelers. But I love that when most people like me go back in the archives, we reference like the early 2020s. Mel goes back to the 1980s, baby. He is one of a kind. He is an NFL draft aficionado for a reason. But your thoughts, Lewis, on Ty Simpson and why he could be a good match for the Steelers at 21.
Yeah, Mel's talking about some football in the good old days, man, and I love it. I mean, those are the glory days. But yeah, there's no question. Look, I really like Ty Simpson, and I like him more and more when I watch him. And why do I think he'd be a good fit for Pittsburgh? Look, I think Ty really would thrive in a West Coast style system. When you see him under center at Alabama, and you see his footwork, his ball handling, the way he carries out fakes, the way he executes the boot game, the way he throws on the move, his athleticism outside the pocket, his ability to throw on the move, see the field, layer the throws, three-level flood concepts on the outside, making good decisions, drive the football when necessary. He can do all of that. Look, he got beat up at Alabama. He wasn't healthy 100% during the course of this season. The offensive line wasn't very good. The running game was non-existent. The wide receiver core was up and down from week to week. There's a lot of factors that went into why this kid started off hot, and then his production kind of tailed off. Then he gets into the playoffs. He goes down to Oklahoma, and he absolutely he brings the team back from a 17-point deficit. And then he gets knocked out by Indiana and takes a hell of a shot, in the rib cage and knocks him out of the football game. So it was an up and down season. Not all of it was simply because the kid just cannot maintain his level of performance. And I get the lack of resume or the lack of a lengthy resume. Look, those are the kind of the devils you're going to have to dance with when you're talking about quarterbacks. We can't all have quarterbacks who have 35, 40 starts. It's just not going to work out that way, Mel. And so, look, I love the kid. I think he is going to make a hell of a pro. It would be nice to have him sit behind someone like a Matthew Stafford, but we may not get a chance to do that.
Yeah,
it's just hard to figure out the Steelers,
Talk about
man.
A guy who is ultra competitive.
They
You're
have
a Steeler,
Will Howard.
You better be, all right? Playing in Pittsburgh with the Steelers. His guy
it's a
won't
total
let him play
direction
by.
issue
Sometimes
for the
that works
Steelers. They got to decide.
But for Ty Simpson, he battled through adversity. As you said, he got better and better as the season went along. Then he hit that late portion of the season, whereas he was banged up, the O-line, he had 5 straight games with a fumble loss, and people react emotionally. They see it, this guy's not a starting quarterback. Go back to before mid-November, and you were talking maybe right there with Mendoza, top 5 pick in the first round, a guy who could be a heck of a quarterback. He can be a heck of a quarterback. He's 23 years of age, been around football his whole life. His dad's a coach. He had 15 starts, or Bob's about to say this. Mac Jones had 17 starts, right? Out of Alabama, he's a faster, more athletic Mac Jones. Mac Jones got off to a great start with McDaniels, and right now is in San Francisco, and people want him. So for me, yes, if I'm Pittsburgh at 21, I would take Ty Simpson.
One of the ultimate X factors in the first round, potentially, of this NFL draft is Ty Simpson.
People want Mac Jones because he just spent a year with Kyle Shanahan.
Weeks. Let's wrap up Mel Kiper Jr.'s final mock draft prior to the combine field workout beginning. Picks 22 through 32 include 2 more pass catchers in this group. The Eagles take tight end Kenyon Sadiq, and the Bills, 3 picks later, take wide receiver Denzel Boston. And then things get fun, as Mel maybe lost his mind with the Houston Texans taking Jadarian Price, running back from Notre Dame, 28th overall. Louis Riddick, I fell out of my chair when I saw this one. What did you think of this pick of Price to the Texans?
I love it. I absolutely love it. When you turn on the tape and you watch number 24 and he starts running the football when Jeremiah Love isn't in the game, you're going, who the hell is this guy? Because this dude
monster.
is a slasher, and he is tough as heck at the contact point. You rarely get this dude down with your first tackle attempt. Great pad level, great acceleration onto the second level. When he jumps this ball to the perimeter, very rarely do you see him not be able to capture the edge and outrun pursuit. And he's just the guy who I think he fits perfectly with what the Texans would need. This would represent great value down there. Not the same kind of pass catcher, route runner, as Jeremiah Love. But this dude is a baller. And I think you would be getting a steal at 28 with him. I was super impressed watching his tape this year.
Thank you, Louis. Thank you very much, pal. I'm with you. I watch every play of Notre Dame football. Just like I watch the Baltimore Ravens every play, right? And I watch Shedeur Sanders for every play. Let's go back to Jadarian Price. You nailed it. You talk about a guy who's a pure runner. He is exceptional. He attacks. Now, we're in at number 24. All running backs look good, right? Love Jadarian Price as a runner. He wasn't utilized as a receiver. He was, and he went back to Notre Dame for next year. He'd have gone a lot higher in the 2027 draft. He also has to work on ball security, where Jeremiah Love never fumbled. Jadarian Price had 4 fumbles lost over the last year and a half. He also has to, you think about kick return ability. That's an added bonus. That's to work on catching it. Wasn't experienced in that regard, but he's a great kickoff returner. Kickoff returns are huge in the NFL these days. He will get you great field position as a kickoff returner and be a runner that he will attack the line of scrimmage.
I'm the contrarian view on this one, apparently. I love the idea of Jadarian Price to the Texans. It's the same pick in the second round. I think he is much more of a second-round pick than a first-round pick, but perhaps I am the one that is wrong in my assessment. We cannot let Mel off the hook yet, though, as Louis, we have to get to one of our biggest takeaways from this first-round mock. And I'm sure there are some players that you kind of wish you saw in these first 32 picks.
You know what? I'll tell you what. I mean, for me, look, I liked what Mel did. The only thing that I would change, quite honestly, is, look, I think R. Mason Thomas going, low down there at 31 to New England, I would have taken him at 25 instead and put him up there, instead of Caden McDonald to Chicago. Because R. Mason Thomas is a dude now, and that's exactly what Chicago needs coming off the edge. A guy who plays with speed, takes that speed, turns it into power, as you see right here on your screen. He can take it off as a tackle and just collapse the pocket. He pursues down the field. He plays with energy. That's exactly what Chicago needs. I think he is going to be an absolute wrecker at the pro level as an edge rusher, no question about it.
All right, Mel, before I air my grievances about this 32-player mock draft, anything else? Is there a player that maybe you wish you had in this mock draft? Or some
I didn't see unless I missed him. No Caleb Banks.
I look at a couple guys.
No Anthony Hill.
Chris Brazel, the second wide receiver, Tennessee. I think he'll move up after the combine. Casey Concepcion, wide receiver from Texas A&M. There were a couple, but Art Mason Thomas. I was getting ripped, Lou, for having him too high, having him in the first round. So I'm with you. But I do love Caden McDonald. I think he's a heck of a player, an immovable defensive tackle.
Yeah, was it the Iotes that were ripping you, Mel? The Iotes, which is a term that if you listen to First Draft, you know what that is all about. My biggest gripe, and I'll let Mel the opportunity to sort of defend his honor here, is where's my guy Cassius Howell, the SEC Defensive Player of the Year from Texas A&M? I'll keep saying it. This guy, if you just need one rush for one play in a third and gotta have it situation, he might be my pick along with David Bailey to be my pass rusher. He is incredibly quick off the edge. He might have short arms, but the explosive skills from Cassius Howell will be on display this week in Indianapolis, Mel.
Yeah, he got bumped by Art Mason Thomas. I've got to tell you that. But Lewis was talking about it. That's who I had at New England in Mach 1.0, but he got bumped.
All right, well, we can't make room for all the guys that we actually wanted in this mock draft. The good news is Mel has more mock drafts coming up in just a few weeks. In the meantime, everybody, enjoy the week that we have ahead at the Combine in Indianapolis. And by the way, we're going to be there later on this week for NFL Draft Daily. We'll have full coverage, which begins with the on-field workouts on Thursday. The main attraction is, of course, Saturday afternoon when the quarterbacks are going to throw. No Fernando Mendoza, but there will be Ty Simpson and others in action.